Good morning, here's your catch-up on the last 17 hours. You had 17 videos worth covering, spanning everything from GitHub's crisis and China's AI dominance to technical debt disasters and some fascinating hardware projects. Let's dive in. The big story today was Theo absolutely torching GitHub in what might be the most damning critique I've seen him deliver. He was genuinely conflicted, throughout clearly heartbroken about criticizing a platform he's used for 15 years, and that launched his career, but also furious about what he sees as complete reliability breakdown. Theo walked through 4 levels of trust erosion. Does it work like yesterday? Does it work right now? Did yesterday's work persist? And can others steal your work? GitHub is now failing on all 4. He detailed specific incidents that had him unable to access pull requests for entire workdays, webhook failures that prevented deployments during critical moments at VidCon, and most seriously, GitHub's merge queue actually unmerging previously merged pull requests, creating split-brain scenarios that make debugging impossible. What really set him off was GitHub COO Kyle's response to the merge incident, which Theo called absolutely fucking pathetic, for describing it as merely a regression in merge queue behavior with no apology. The deeper issue is leadership. GitHub has no CEO and now reports to a Microsoft executive VP who also manages core AI, Azure, and Copilot. Mitchell Hashimoto, GitHub user number 1299 from 2008, posted an emotional farewell announcing he's leaving after 18 years because outages now impact his work almost daily. Theo also highlighted the npm/Tanstack incident, where malware was discovered in a squatted package that GitHub ignored despite trademark claims and internal reports. His conclusion was stark. GitHub has reached zero trust, and he's planning a follow-up video on migration alternatives. Staying with platform concerns, Matthew Berman delivered what felt like a genuine wake-up call about China's AI strategy. He was clearly alarmed throughout, opening with stark, screwed, or win everything language about America's position. His core argument is that U.S. open-source AI is almost certainly doomed, because American companies can't make money giving away models, while China's government subsidizes theirs as a strategic weapon to undermine U.S. market leaders. The economics are brutal. U.S. labs spend months and millions developing models, then give them away, while competitors serve inference with higher margins since they didn't invest in development. China succeeds because they pick winners and subsidize anti-competitive behavior globally. The timing is critical because enterprises are deciding AI strategies now, comparing expensive proprietary models from OpenAI and Anthropic against cheaper Chinese alternatives that handle 99.9% of business problems. Berman surveyed the U.S. landscape and found it concerning. Meta abandoned open source after initially championing it. OpenAI's GPTOSS is just goodwill. Anthropic has zero open-source strategy. The potential white knight is NVIDIA with their $26 billion open-source investment, since their business model works when competitors become customers using NVIDIA chips. But the risks are severe. Even hosting locally, China would dictate AI standards and might optimize for their own chips. Berman's solution involves federal grants, treating open source as national infrastructure, and hardware companies following NVIDIA's model. Speaking of AI tooling challenges, Nate Jones tackled the widespread frustration of employees stuck with mandated corporate AI tools that perform poorly compared to alternatives like Claude. He was initially frustrated, but became energetic when discussing measurement strategy. The core issue is companies expect frontier tool results from default tool performance, while individual contributors know the approved tools can't do their actual jobs. This creates a hidden productivity tax in 30-minute cleanup chunks and constant workarounds. Nate's solution is systematic. Pick one recurring weekly job taking at least 30 minutes, run identical tasks through corporate default and specialist tools, then measure time spent, rework required, and output quality. Document everything as concrete evidence rather than opinions. He emphasized keeping requests small and specific instead of replace Copilot. Ask about adding a specialist tool for specific job classes. He referenced real examples like Jonah Duggan at Google, whose viral post showed Claude solving in 1 hour what her team built over a year, and WealthSimple's structured evaluation approach. The key is making data-driven cases rather than emotional arguments, with requests sized appropriately for your organizational level. On a related note about organizational technology problems, the Syria CTO was genuinely fired up about technical debt, calling it a $2 trillion annual drain on the U.S. economy that nobody wants to discuss. He was clearly frustrated with the typical blame cycle where managers panic about DMOS, push teams to cut corners, celebrate success, then 6 months later blame engineers for messy code. The numbers are staggering. Average developers spend 13+ hours weekly dealing with inherited shortcuts, with some organizations spending 87% of engineering time on maintenance versus 13% on new features. His prime example was Southwest Airlines losing $800 million in December 2022 from their 1990s crew scheduling system failure. They skipped roughly $100 million in infrastructure investments over a decade, then paid 8 times that in 10 days when it finally broke. He made the case that AI is making this worse, with 2025 Stack Overflow data showing developers' biggest frustration is AI-generated code that's almost right but not quite, creating debugging nightmares months later. His recommendations include the Mikado method for systematic cleanup and the strangler fig pattern for complete system replacement, plus allocating 15–25% of IT budgets to debt cleanup, because successful organizations have calculated this provides real productivity gains. Moving to AI development opportunities, Stefan Mischuk made the case that learning local LLMs is becoming essential for developers. He was enthusiastic about AI representing a fundamental paradigm shift in software development, not competition for developers, but for old tech stacks like React and Node.js. Stefan emphasized that if he were young again, AI would be his primary learning focus because he regularly gets approached by companies wanting AI solutions. He distinguished between cloud models with token costs and local models that are free once downloaded, but require decent hardware like an M4 Mac. The key advantage is that local models offer security benefits and cost savings, though they're not as capable as cloud models. Stefan introduced the concept of AI harnessing, the orchestration and configuration around models that often determines success more than raw model quality. He described modern developers needing to understand different models' strengths to create multi-step AI pipelines, maybe starting with Claude, passing output to GPT, then sending results to a local model. His personal workflow for converting video transcripts to articles involves 2 separate AIs processing twice, then a third prompt generating the final article. Stefan warned that hoping to get jobs just writing React code is over, comparing it to once-hot technologies like ActionScript that became obsolete. Dan Martell took a different angle on AI opportunities, ranking 20 AI business models across 4 tiers. He was clearly confident throughout, frequently calling out internet gurus as frauds while positioning himself as launching AI companies monthly. His top pick was AI agent development, what he called the S of the S of the S, involving teams of AI agents working together to attack labor costs on business expense sheets. He positioned this as the iPhone moment of AI, with massive profitability potential and low competition due to technical barriers. His second favorite was AI consulting, describing $5,000 audits that become $50,000 implementation projects with high profitability and low competition. AI voice agents for businesses like plumbers and law firms got a tier ranking since most businesses don't realize how good the technology has become. He was particularly harsh on faceless AI YouTube channels, calling them bullshit because YouTube's algorithm buries AI content and channels get demonetized quickly. For his top choice of AI agents, Martell provided a 5-step launch blueprint. Validate with landing pages, pre-sell using crowdfunding approaches, launch manually through consulting, build audience by partnering with people discussing the problem, then only productize after proving consistent demand. Google quietly added file creation capabilities to Gemini, and Teachers Tech took a measured approach to evaluating what actually works versus the bigger picture implications. He was notably pragmatic, stating upfront that Gemini can make a PDF. It's not a feature that justifies a 10-minute video on its own. The real significance is this represents the first consumer-facing piece of Google's workspace intelligence strategy. He demonstrated converting messy meeting notes into formatted parent newsletters as PDFs, then showed how Gemini can access spreadsheets directly from Drive to create executive summaries with charts without users ever opening the original files. The Drive integration is particularly impressive. He asked for analysis of video performance data and Gemini pulled the spreadsheet, analyzed it, created charts, and generated a formatted summary automatically. However, there are significant limitations. No PowerPoint support requiring a two-step workaround, and Gemini cannot edit existing files. Any edit request creates a new version rather than modifying the original. He positioned this as the beginning of Google's broader workspace intelligence vision, announced at Cloud Next 2026, where Gemini would have real-time understanding of user work across all Google apps simultaneously, eliminating the need to provide context for each query. GameMaker announced their 2026 roadmap with some significant updates that caught Mike's attention. He was measured but genuinely appreciative, particularly impressed with recent editor improvements. The big news is TypeScript and JavaScript being added as first-class languages usable anywhere GML currently works. Mike found it amusing they never call other languages second-class. C# support is coming, but as a proxied implementation where developers write C# libraries and call them from other languages, meaning both GMRT and C# runtimes run simultaneously with both garbage collectors active. The new GameMaker runtime, GMRT, is exiting beta with 99% compatible functionality, and importantly, the source code will be made available. Though Mike stressed this is source available, not open source, requiring active licenses for commercial distribution. Major 3D improvements include GLTF model loading support, scene graphs for organizing 3D scenes, and improved 3D math tools, though Mike noted the tooling would fight with you a little bit, since GameMaker is traditionally 2D focused. They're also adding CLI tools for continuous integration, allowing project building outside the IDE, and long-term support versions for developers wanting stable releases throughout development cycles. Bigot made a compelling case for why software engineers make the best entrepreneurs but often fail at it. He was confident throughout, speaking from claimed experience earning $250K as a software engineering manager and running a multi-seven-figure consulting firm. His core insight is that entrepreneurship comes down to iterations and feedback loops. Knowledge, not execution, is the real barrier to success. Software engineers have already mastered feedback loops through debugging processes, naturally thinking in cycles of building MVPs, seeing results, identifying bugs, then debugging. However, engineers fail at the iteration component because their rational nature leads to overanalysis and insufficient attempts. He described a funnel problem. Out of 100 engineers, maybe only 10 try entrepreneurship, only 2 try a second time after failure, and maybe only 1 considers a quality third attempt. The engineers he's mentored who achieved ludicrous results all worked specifically on increasing their iterations. His recommended starting approach involves deep self-reflection using the 5 whys exercise to determine fundamental motivation, then considering what happens if you don't achieve entrepreneurial goals. He positioned mindset as the primary barrier, not skills, since most engineers are already skilled enough to make significantly more money than they currently do. TED featured David Larbi with a refreshingly different perspective on finding contentment through small daily joys. He came across as genuinely warm and contemplative, opening with a mindfulness exercise that set an intimate tone. Larbi acknowledged potential criticism that focusing on joy sounds naive given life's complexity, sharing personal vulnerabilities about tears on his pillow and stolen journals revealing fears. His core philosophy is that while major life events might provide 1 joy per month, small joys most seriously because they stack up to be rather tall. He positioned joy not as frivolity, but as a whimsical, powerful tool and thread of resilience woven into our lives. When there are cracks, joy brings light through. His revelation about self-worth was profound. We matter because we exist. We deserve joy by virtue of this. He provided a poetic litany of specific small joys. When your drink is perfect temperature, fork holds the perfect bite, you put on favorite socks, adjust sitting position just right, discover a great song, make eye contact with friendly strangers, stretch and relax, take satisfying breaths, or turn your face to the sky. His final message emphasized that life is made of average days and each offers joy aplenty, preferring to be frequently happy rather than waiting for rare major events. Dave's Garage delivered a fascinating restoration project that connected 1990s technology to modern IoT concerns. Dave was genuinely enthusiastic about getting a Nordal Millennium Payphone working in his garage. But what made this interesting was his analysis of how it represents early cloud-dependent hardware. The Payphone wasn't just a simple device, but an embedded computer with Zilog Z80 processor, internal modem, and complete dependence on a Millennium Manager backend system for basic operation. When first powered up, it displayed out of service because it expected to download settings from this management system. It was bureaucratically dead rather than electrically dead. Dave used leaked demo firmware and a Grandstream analog telephone adapter to bridge the Payphone from the copper loop era into packet-switched internet. He extensively described the electronic coin validation system that holds coins in escrow until calls complete successfully, like physical transaction processing. What excited Dave most was connecting this to broader themes about hardware ownership versus functional control. This 30-year-old Payphone exemplifies modern problems with cloud-locked devices. When backend services disappear, perfectly good hardware becomes stranded, just like his 2018 car losing remote start when the manufacturer discontinued cloud service. The restoration preserves the full ceremonial communication experience of knowing numbers, having change, and hoping people are home. Brian Lunjuk was clearly incredulous throughout his coverage of Lix, a fork of the Nix package management system that has implemented some unusual code of conduct rules. He was particularly bewildered by their ban on plural phobia, discrimination against people with multiple personality disorder, alongside typical restrictions on transphobia and right-wing ideology. Lunjuk expressed genuine confusion about the practical implications, questioning how effective software developers with multiple personalities could be and sarcastically wondering what happens if one personality is a Russian hacker while another is terrible at programming. He read verbatim from their policy, requiring contributors to treat every claimed personality as real and show respect to each one, using hypothetical examples of someone named Tony from Nebraska who sometimes thinks he's Julius Caesar. The project also explicitly forbids Republican affiliation or right-wing ideologies, making it deliberately political rather than neutral. Lunjuk provided context that Lix emerged from NixOS, which had already purged conservative contributors and forced the abdication of NixOS's founder for not doing enough to combat alleged fascists. According to Lunjuk, Lix represents a group that found even those extreme measures insufficient, prompting them to fork with even more restrictive policies. He expressed deep discomfort with using software created by such people, calling the entire situation patently absurd and insane. The Ionic guy took us through a thorough inspection of his mom's newly purchased 2019 Hyundai Kona Electric, and he was genuinely happy for her upgrade from a 2012 Ford Fusion with over 100,000 miles. The car has 94,000 total miles, but crucially the battery pack was replaced at 28,000 miles, meaning the battery effectively only has 66,000 miles, which should provide good longevity. His inspection was methodical, revealing several issues that need attention. Charge port alignment problems likely from previous front-end damage, panel gaps that confirm something happened to the front end, worn rear wiper blade, bug residue and tree sap that need cleaning, and various minor cosmetic damage including door dings and scuff trim. The interior shows expected wear for the mileage. Steering wheel has lost texture and shows flaking, cup holders are worn, and door switches need detailing. However, the seats have held up well, and surprisingly, the steering wheel button paint hasn't chipped. He plans to take the car to Boston for extended battery testing and possibly Tesla supercharger compatibility testing. One proactive maintenance item he identified is replacing the 12-volt battery dated July 2022, which at about 3 years old is approaching end of useful life. His confidence in the purchase comes from his fiancée's positive 2-year lease experience with a Kona electric, commuting daily from Connecticut to Providence without issues. Finally, Sam Evans from the Electric Viking was clearly torn between excitement and skepticism while covering claims from Chinese vacuum manufacturer Dream about their supposedly revolutionary supercar. He started with amazement about the most technologically amazing car ever, but quickly shifted to cautious doubt, repeatedly emphasizing, if it's real, and that's a big if. The Nebula Next One Jet Edition claims 0-60 acceleration in 0.9 seconds through a dual solid rocket booster system, essentially a large fan creating downforce rather than forward propulsion. Evans expressed serious safety concerns about sitting in such a vehicle without extensive testing. The battery technology claims are equally ambitious. Sulfide-based solid-state batteries exceeding 450 watt-hours per kilogram, which would be revolutionary since current leaders only achieve about 300 Wh/kg. However, Evans found the claimed range suspicious, only 550 kilometers CLTC, which seems low for such energy-dense batteries. Additional claims include full steer-by-wire with 14 degrees of freedom, LiDAR with 4,320 lines and 600-meter detection range, and full self-driving capabilities tested in extreme conditions. Evans expressed mounting skepticism throughout, noting too many industry firsts being claimed simultaneously by a first-time automaker. He suggested the demonstrations might involve prototype batteries with limited cycle life unsuitable for commercial sale, questioning whether Dream was presenting theoretical future capabilities rather than production-ready technology. That's your comprehensive rundown from the last 17 hours. From GitHub's existential crisis to China's AI strategy, technical debt disasters to fascinating hardware projects, it's been quite a day for tech news and analysis. Stay informed, and we'll catch you up again soon.